What if everything that you were taught to believe about the universe, the history of the human race, reality itself, what if all of it was a lie? What if the truth was hidden and the story that we've been programmed and trained to believe since childhood was actually a very carefully crafted narrative to prevent us from realizing who we truly are, what reality really is, and what our full potential is? What if there were ways of being and existing in this three-dimensional reality that would transcend human understanding? What if we could cultivate abilities that would make our experience of reality seem like a dream? What if human potential was limitless and all we had to do was dismantle these stories, this narrative that we were programmed to believe by society, by religion, even science, and by the rulers of this earth, who are clinging on to this last bit of power that they have to prevent you from realizing what I'm going to discuss in this video. Hey everybody, it's Brian again. I'm a lifelong journalist, was raised Christian, and had a spiritual awakening in 2020 that led me to higher levels of understanding about consciousness, the universe, who we are, the role we play in this universe, and what reality is. I actually written a book, and in this video, I'm going to cover this book. Talk about this book, and some of its contents. And what I'll say about this book is that when I had my spiritual awakening in 2020, I instantly realized that the story that I was told or raised to believe, that we were separate from God, that we needed to be saved or we'd be tortured forever, was bullshit, basically. You are an eternal spiritual being, have a temporary human experience. Divinity, the great reality that is God, can only be found by turning within. And this understanding cannot be institutionalized, which is why the teachings of Christ were hijacked by the government, essentially. If you do your homework, I'll share the Nag Hammadi library. If you look up the Nag Hammadi library, most of the teachings of Christianity were distorted beyond religion, or beyond belief, and what remains is basically an institutionalized understanding that you need to go to the church, you need something outside of you to be saved from being tortured forever, which is horribly demonic thing and traumatic thing to tell a child. Insane. A lot of us were traumatized by this religion. What we don't know is that the inner teachings of Christ were only discovered less than a century ago in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, and that basically he understood that a being of this magnitude, perfected being, understood that his teachings would not survive. Even his own disciples struggled to understand what he was trying to convey, is that the individual conscious being is a contraction of universal awareness, has no independent existence apart from God. Everything is God, and enlightenment and self-realization are the true aim of human life. But let's replace those words with enlightenment and self-realization. Let's replace them with words like evolved, because that's what it's really pointing to. It's pointing to the limitless nature of human potential and what it takes for us to evolve. So what we have today in society is an institutionalized understanding, people who have not sought the truth, people who are not evolved and are essentially the blind leading the blind. And what I've always understood is that following the herd will lead you to the slaughterhouse. So in this video, we will talk about the 108 cities of yoga. So first off, let me start by saying that Eastern spiritual wisdom is thousands of years older than Abrahamic religions. And in all reality, Christ almost certainly studied in India. He would have had to have, okay? Because this is the most oldest and most sophisticated spiritual wisdom on the planet. And to call it evil, to demonize it, is nothing short of racism and ignorance. So what happened when Western civilization and Christian nationalism went into India to colonize it? What they discovered was that many of the spiritual adepts there had developed cities, and there are 108 classical cities of yoga, which are supernatural spiritual abilities that these spiritual adepts had cultivated, which made them very hard to control. Just like Yeshua, just like Christ, would be very hard to control an enlightened, perfected being who is operating from spiritual sovereignty. And that's what we are here to do, is to realize divinity lies within, to think for ourselves, to stop following institutionalized brainwashing nonsense that has held this planet in spiritual amnesia for ages. Spiritual amnesia is a form of soul loss in which the individual conscious being does not realize that it is a part of the one. And that is the default mode right now for humanity, is you essentially have an entire world, an entire civilization, 8 billion people, the majority of which have no idea who they are, have no idea there are literally millions of Earth-like planets, there are higher dimensions, there are extraterrestrial civilizations who are trying to help us, and there's those that are trying to harm us and hinder us and hold us in enslavement. We have to stand, we have to take a stand. That's why many of us took birth. If you're watching this video, perhaps you took birth for this, and perhaps you're stepping out of religion, or you already have, or you understand the horrible indoctrination and abuse that goes on in these religious circles. And I understand that it definitely serves people at that level of consciousness, but ultimately to evolve we must let go. And so back to the story is when the Western civilization went to colonize India, they basically demonized Hinduism and Buddhism as being evil, which is racism, Christian nationalism, the idea that a young and immature and materialistically driven religion such as Christianity is somehow superior and we should convert others is very arrogant, because Hinduism is so much more sophisticated. You could spend your life studying it and barely scratch the surface. These are highly evolved spiritual systems that don't so much assert a theory of God or reality, but rather tell you the steps you need to take to experience that truth yourself. What Western civilization, specifically the Catholic Church and the Christian Church, did not want their masses doing this, and that's what they don't want us happening now, is us developing cities on our own. Now, generally speaking, the yogis, the mystics take a very guarded view of these cities. This is not for beginners. This is not a practice that you take up. These abilities are the side effect of sincere, authentic spiritual seeking and spiritual development. But they offer us a glimpse at what is available to us if we turn within, if we die to self, and if we strive to be of service to others and seek guidance from our higher selves, higher consciousness, that our life becomes illustrious. We see reality as a dream. We understand that the whole thing is just a reflection of me. I don't need to change the outer world. I just need to change me. Part of that for me is spreading truth and spreading wisdom like this. I'll leave a link to this book in the comments, but I will continue to say it's not for beginners. Spiritual evolution, enlightenment, self-realization, these are the goals. This is the goal of existence. This is why you're here. Forget all the material things, the wealth. When we begin to develop ourselves, reality literally bends in our favor. And we can experience a level of richness and fullness. And what I aim to do in future videos is show us how to access these altered states of fullness, meditation, breath work. It's about listening to this, the heart, and quieting this, the intellect. Abiding in truth, realizing the radiance of life. For me, and I'll just share this personally, is that I am a person in long-term recovery. I was a severe drug addict. It's a miracle I'm alive. The only reason I survived is because I'm here to fulfill this work that I'm doing now as someone who knows that they exist on a higher level of reality, that the universe is a dream. It exists inside of me as much as I exist in it. Consciousness is fundamental. Life is a dream. A lot of the disciplines include meditation, Kundalini yoga, Hatha yoga, pranayama, mantra resuscitation. Some of the disciplines I engage in also include fasting, cold exposure, dietary optimization, high intensity interval training, weight training, visualization, manifestation. Life more or less flows effortlessly when you understand that human potential is limitless. When we realize you aren't the individual, physical universe is a dream. I know I jumped around a little bit. I just wanted to get this video out because I have a lot of other content that I create. I do this for a living. I'm a lifelong reporter, and it's my joy to bring you this. But if there's anything you would like to see, or if you're interested in this book and exploring the 108 cities of yoga, It's on Amazon. I'll include a link. It's in the description here. I appreciate you all. If you followed me to the ending here, you are my friend, and I love you. I'd love to hear what you'd like to hear more of, whether it be the understanding the inner teachings of Yeshua, because I say Yeshua because his name was Yeshua. He was a perfected being who studied in India, rather than tailgate on this second-rate, nonsensical religion that has survived the ages for social validation. Why would I do that? Acknowledging their fairy tale that Sky Daddy is going to torture you forever if you don't accept this religion, which is nonsense. Why would I piggytail off of that when I could just go straight for the meat and potatoes and study what Christ studied, which was in India and Tibet in his missing years? And if you do study from in India and Tibet and you look at the inner teachings of Christ, you'll see they're synonymous. There's no difference. And I don't mean to knock Christianity, because I know it helps a lot of people. As a person in long-term recovery, I see it helps a lot of people. And what I can tell you is that a lot of these people that are helped by it, their pineal gland is completely calcified, and it's very sad and unfortunate. But if we can develop ourselves onto a higher path, I'm okay with, hey, there's no stopping Christianity. That's great. This is God's church, and I think that a lot of this advanced wisdom isn't for them. It's going to go completely over their head. It serves people at that level of consciousness. And I love Jesus, and I love Christians, and I love you, and I love you all. But I would be interested to hear. There are a lot of voices speaking up about the trauma caused by this religion. And what I'll share personally real quick here before wrapping it up is that a lot of my addictive issues came from this religion. It's good to have an outlet to share this, but to be told as a child that an all-loving God, okay, let me give you the whole premise of this religion. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. The entire premise of this religion, if I'm not mistaken, is that this whole planet of 8 billion people came from a man named Adam, who was made from dirt, a woman named Eve, who was made from his ribs. They are the parent of the whole 8 billion people, which is genetically impossible. Scientists know this is so asinine, it's not even debatable. 2 people were used to create the whole planet of 8 billion, but because they were hoodwinked by a talking lizard, tricked them into eating a forbidden fruit, and now because of it, the whole 8 billion on this planet is doomed forever. However, in order to remove this curse that he placed on the human race, that God placed on the human race, he impregnates a teenager with himself so that he can murder himself to forgive a sentence that he imposed. Tell me how any of this adds up. Tell me how you can honestly look yourself in the mirror and call yourself intelligent or free-thinking or rational when this is your guiding light, your guiding principle of truth, because it's complete nonsense. And I've watched Christians do the shuffle, the backwards shuffle, and all this jumping around. They'll attack your character. Well, they'll do whatever they can because the ego would rather be right than it would be happy. And that's what religion does. It reinforces the ego, and it gives our group a sense of superiority. And I don't mean to bash Christianity. A lot of this is coming out because I was traumatized by this. To be told that God was going to torture me and to walk around believing that he was going to torture most of the people that I love and that were close to me. They were all going to be tortured unless they symbolically ate the flesh and covered themselves in the blood of a Jewish carpenter or worship him. Guy who washed his disciples' feet and said, and was the embodiment of humility. We have to worship him or we will be tortured forever. Most people will be tortured forever. So this is sort of like this teaching that has been handed down through the ages and distorted beyond recognition. This teaching is sort of like a bad virus. Imagine you have someone who has a computer virus and they don't realize they have a computer virus, but they think that it's actually good software, and they're going around, they're trying to give this software to people as if it's going to help them. And what it does is when humanity was at that level of consciousness and we were in a slave-like mentality and we needed to be threatened in order to abide by Dharma, in order to be good, when we blind faith in institution and authority was our only guiding light rather than common sense, logic, and reason. This made a lot of money. A lot of people died over it. A lot of ethnic groups were cleansed because of it. But ultimately, we are awakening from it because even Yeshua said, this is an abomination. There will be many in that day who say to me, Lord, Lord, I did all these great things. Billionaires making televangelists, billionaires people who are making millions and millions of dollars off a man who said, sell everything you own. Do your works in private so that your Father may honor you. Horrible what has been done. And as a person who was raised in Christianity, I feel like it is my duty to say, hey, look, what you guys are spreading is false. You are an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Yeshua was trying to point you to that truth, trying to awaken you to that truth. He was seeding higher dimensional consciousness that is coming to fruition now, 2,000 years later, and will continue to come down like biblical prophecy, while the masses are ever waiting for that external savior, the adept, the starseed, the wanderer, the mystic, the yogi. We realize that we are that, and it's not a matter of chasing the one, but becoming the one. Anyways, I've gone on long enough. I hope this helps. I love you all. God bless.